The hour before sunrise holds a kind of magic. A silence not born from stillness but from restraint. As if the world is holding its breath before it dares to begin again. Inside the Paris airport terminal, that silence reigned. It was cold, unwelcoming. The kind of artificial chill that clings to polished floors and glass walls. And at gate 37, a man stood quietly.
Bonjour.
He stepped down the jet bridge with a quiet gait, his footsteps absorbed by the carpet. The cabin was still half empty when he boarded. Seat 2A, business class window. His eyes turned toward the window. Behind him, the cabin began to fill. Still, no one noticed the man in 2A. Because power, when it is real, has no need to announce itself. It doesn't scream. It waits. It began, as these things often do, not with a shout, but with a murmur. Far from seat 2A, near the check-in desk outside the Air France gate, a quiet disturbance had started to brew. At first, it was subtle, nothing unusual. Just another elite passenger with expectations. French, late 50s, confident, polished, entitled.
I believe you don't understand who I am.
We've double-checked. Every seat in business is occupied.
Then remove someone.
A senior flight attendant was summoned. She emerged from the crew's private area like a soldier sent into battle. Her eyes moved quickly from left to right. Seat 1A, 1B, 2A. There, by the window, sat a man she hadn't noticed during boarding. A black man, no tie, no blazer, no designer watch, just a hoodie and a calm expression.
Bonjour, monsieur. May I please see your boarding pass?
Traoré looked up, quiet, unbothered. He handed it over without hesitation. She checked it once, then again.
Sir, we may need to ask you to relocate to economy. We'll compensate you, of course.
And why me?
No reason, sir. Just a small adjustment for our guest.
A guest more important than me? No, I will remain in my seat.
Sir, I insist. It's for operational reasons.
If it's operational, then please explain why I'm being asked and not anyone else.
And so she walked off, fast, the way people do when they're losing control and trying not to show it. Some confrontations arrive like thunder, loud, crashing, impossible to ignore. But others crawl in quietly, almost politely, wearing the mask of routine. This one was the latter. Clare, the flight attendant, had returned to the front of the plane. Her heels clicked too fast against the carpeted aisle. Her posture, once elegant and controlled, had stiffened. Her smile, once polished, had turned into a tight line barely hiding irritation. She leaned into the crew area near the cockpit and whispered in urgent French to the captain. Her voice was low, but her frustration was visible. In her hand gestures, in the sharp tilt of her head, she wasn't looking for guidance. She was looking for permission. Claire straightened her jacket and returned to the cabin. But she didn't go back to seat 2A. No, this time, she scanned the rest of the business class section, eyes moving fast, calculating.
Sir, I'm afraid we'll need to move you to economy. There's been a mix-up.
Why me?
Because from row 2A, Ibrahim Traoré had been watching. He had said nothing since their last exchange, but his silence was not surrender. It was study.
Enough.
Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to sit down. Please don't cause a scene.
You are making decisions based on skin, not on tickets. That is called discrimination.
Sir, that's not true. I'm simply...
It was the look of a man whose ancestors had been chained for their skin, now standing tall before those who still thought they could command him.
I'll need to speak to the captain. He's right. They're targeting only the black passengers.
I should already be seated.
The confrontation had begun, but it was not his battle alone anymore. Now, the eyes of a cabin were with him, and soon, the eyes of the world would be too. There are moments in life when power is not in the title, or the uniform, or the wealth, but in the ability to say no and mean it. That was the moment Ibrahim Traoré had stepped into. He hadn't raised his voice. He hadn't called for guards, or pulled rank, or announced his position. He had simply refused. And now, that refusal echoed louder than any command. Clare stood at the edge of the business class section, unmoving for several seconds. Her lips pressed together in thought. Her jaw tightened, but she did not return to seat 2A.
Excuse me, sir. May I speak with you a moment?
Yes?
I'm afraid we need to move you to economy. We've had a last-minute change.
Why me?
I don't have an explanation, just instructions.
And that's when Traoré stood again. The second time was even quieter than the first.
You are still selecting people. You've passed white passengers, men in suits, people carrying no visible boarding passes. You've asked no questions of them. But every person you've targeted to move has one thing in common. Skin.
A man in row 1. A look down at his shoes. A woman across the aisle folded her arms tightly.
Sir, I'll have to ask you to sit down. This isn't your concern.
It is exactly my concern. You are enforcing discrimination under the banner of airline policy. And you're doing it on African soil, in an aircraft bound for the capital of my nation. This is unacceptable. I'll be making a call when we land.
Inside the cabin, Claire disappeared again toward the cockpit. When she returned, her steps were faster, her eyes more frantic.
Please, take your seat again. There's been a misunderstanding.
And still, Ibrahim Traoré had said very little. He simply walked back to his seat, lowered himself into 2A, and looked out the window again. Outside, the horizon had turned gold. Inside, the balance had shifted. The airline had not yet made a decision, but Africa had, and it was watching. Power, when it is real, doesn't need to raise its voice. Ibrahim Traoré sat in seat 2A and didn't say a word. He didn't need to. Around him, the cabin was now a theater of restraint. Every movement, every glance, every adjustment of a scarf or flick of a newspaper was performed under the tension of unspoken awareness. They knew the tone of the flight attendant's voice, the way she had scanned the cabin like a security officer, not a host. And now they were watching him, the man in the hoodie, the one who had spoken calmly and refused to move. Clare, the flight attendant, moved about the cabin, trying to return to routine. She was unraveling, not from what had been said, but from what hadn't. Jean-Marc Delacourt entered the cabin with the same stride he used in boardrooms, entitled, amused, dominant.
Welcome aboard, monsieur. We've resolved the seating issue.
Good. I expected as much.
He passed seat 2. Without looking. Didn't pause. Didn't recognize the man sitting there. Claire ensured he was comfortable. She adjusted his seatbelt, tucked his napkin, offered him another drink, which he accepted with a smug smirk. 2 men, seated just a few feet apart. One, pampered praise, blind with pride. The other, silent, patient, observing. And still, no one had said his name. And still, no one had said his name. No one knew they were looking at the President of Burkina Faso. But the silence was growing. The storm was still quiet, yes. But now it had direction. And soon it would have impact. No one quite knew what was unfolding, not fully. But they knew enough. They knew what they'd seen. They had felt it. She avoided looking toward 2A, but her body betrayed her. Her shoulders were tight. Her jaw was clenched. He never raised his voice. That, more than anything, had shaken her. He hadn't begged to be believed. He hadn't listed credentials or pulled out ID. He had simply refused, in the same way a mountain refuses wind. And the silence afterward had been louder than anything she could have imagined. Neither of them knew, not yet. But the contrast couldn't have been starker. They exchanged light conversation, him laughing at his own jokes, or nodding a little too eagerly. But the silence was growing. The storm was still quiet, yes, but now it had direction, and soon it would have impact. Some truths don't arrive with warning. They descend, sudden, sharp, irreversible, like a curtain torn down mid-act, exposing what was hidden in plain sight. Flight AF 534 began its slow descent over Ouagadougou. The captain's voice came over the intercom, French first, then English, announcing approach and weather. Passengers stirred awake. Window shades lifted. Seatbelts clicked shut. The ordinary rhythm of landing began. But what was waiting on the ground was anything but ordinary. Was anything but ordinary. Are we at war?
No, that's military protocol. Maybe someone important is on this flight. Must be for me. Private exit. Mon président, bienvenue chez vous. You two, come with us.
I'm sorry?
You are being detained for questioning.
For what?
This is absurd. You have publicly disrespected the head of state on national soil. That is a serious offense.
No, this is a mistake. I didn't know.
You didn't need to know. You only needed to treat him like a human being.
Not in the presence of a leader who walked with his people, not above them. Some moments make headlines, others make history. This one did both. The sun over Ouagadougou had fully risen now, bathing the tarmac in sharp golden light. Clare, the flight attendant, walked stiffly, her step small, breath shallow. She no longer smiled. Behind her, Jean-Marc Delacourt, CEO, energy magnate, master of backdoor deals and billion-euro projects, looked less like a titan and more like a man who had just discovered the rules he thought he wrote no longer applied. Gone were the smug jokes. Gone was the champagne confidence. In their place, confusion, panic, and disbelief. They were led toward two waiting vehicles, black